I bow to the divinity and all my reflections before me, wherever y'all at in YouTube land. Peace and thank you guys for participating in my first session, my first guided meditation that I posted to YouTube officially. Been a lot of great positive feedback. Also, you guys who have been listening on Spotify and the other platforms, immense gratitude and appreciation. People have been telling me to do this for years, so now that we actually here, it's just kind of surreal, and it just feels good to be able to give these tools to people who may not have access to me in a live session or one-on-one. So immense gratitude. Continue to subscribe, continue to like, comment, and share with your people who need these lessons, who may not necessarily be interested in, the highest levels of spirituality, but these techniques and these tools can help you in your day-to-day life. And this is what we're going to get into in today's session. So today I want to teach you guys how to do something that a lot of meditation teachers talk about. At least I don't hear it, and I've studied so many different gurus, so many different modalities. I have heard it talked about, but definitely not to the degree where closed eye meditation is talked about. People think the only way you can meditate is by having your eyes closed. So I want to teach you guys how to actually meditate with your eyes open, because most of our lives, especially as adults, teenage years, you could sleep all day, you could chill. It was a lot of things that you could do that didn't necessarily require your awareness and keen, sharp attention. As an adult, you got to be on your square. From the moment you wake up, you planning the day, you're looking at yourself, making the breakfast and washing your body and driving to work. You need your eyes. So to have to condense our ability to meditate in these small pockets where we have to have our eyes closed, this is why a lot of my clients and people I work with tell me, "Docs, I don't got time to meditate," which is understandable. We have to get things done. So when you learn how to meditate with your eyes open, you open up a huge opportunity. You open up all this space and time to be able to practice these things while you're at the cubicle, while you at work, while you with your homegirls, while you out at the club. These techniques I'm about to show you can be practiced and developed anywhere, and you'll notice the more you work with this aspect of meditation, it will bleed into the time where you have the space, time, and opportunity to really go deep, to close your eyes, to shut out the world. Both these worlds will start to bleed into each other. But without open eye meditation, I don't get to the point of my comprehension, my understanding, and my relationship with being able to meditate literally all day, every day. Even right now, as it seems like I'm teaching, I'm still in meditation, and you'll see what I mean when I go into this technique. So one of the first things we got to understand is how we use our depth perception, not just in sight, but in thought. So let's just do a brief experiment. Everybody put your finger right in front of your face, maybe 6 to 8 inches in front of you, okay? And I want you to focus on your fingertip, right? And we talked last session about the 11 million bits of data that you have access to on any given moment. Conscious mind is really only computing 50 of those bits. Right now, the only bit of information that you should give your attention to is the tip of your finger. And keep it right there. And now, keeping your finger there, I want you to shift your attention, your vision, from the tip of your finger to whatever the furthest object is in front of your finger. So for me, that's the door, maybe 12 feet in front of me. So my finger is still there, but now my finger has kind of faded into the background. It's kind of blurred out, and right now my attention comes from the root phrase to stretch towards. It's stretching towards the door, and the door is completely clear to me. There are things in my periphery that I can still make out, but my attention is sharp and fixed on the door. Now bring your attention back to the tip of your finger. You'll notice the door goes back into blurriness. Your finger becomes clear, okay? You can drop your finger. The reason we do that, and this is actually a technique I use to help heal my vision. A book I can recommend for anybody that's dealing with eye problems, The Art of Eye Opportunities. We are careful with our language here. We don't have no problems. We have opportunities to evolve. So if you got any eye opportunities, The Art of Cosmic Vision by Montauk Chia has a bunch of these eye strengthening types of techniques. But in doing this, I was just trying to work on my physical eye. I started to realize doing this technique how the mind and the attention works. And even in the depth perception of vision, right? You have 3 stages. You have the thing that your vision is focused on. right, which initially was the tip of our finger. And go back, put your finger back up. You got the tip of your finger, right, the object, the bindu, like we talked about in the first session, that drop or point where our attention goes. So right now, our bindu is the tip of our finger, but in between the tip of your finger and your eyes, you have space, right, which is included in vision. These are things we normally overlook and ignore. And also, with the object being the tip of the finger, the space inside you're seeing your tip of your finger and where your eyes are, you also have an aspect of yourself that's noticing sight, that's noticing the process of vision actually happening. These are the three phases of how we perceive, not only in what we see, but what we see in our mind's eye. And when you understand these are the phases, you start to be able to catch yourself in those intermediate aspects of going towards the finger, coming back to the space. And keep in mind, when you scaled your attention back, that space that was in between finger and object is much more vast. It's much more large. When you have a particular bindu, of course, the information of your attention is sharp and focuses on a small point. But when you expand that, when you pull it out, when you give your attention that bird's eye view, it includes more data. It includes more information. Maybe not with the same clarity and focus, but it has more information it has access to. When you go to the observer of sight itself, that's even more expansive. I'm not expecting everybody to like really be able to be aware of the awareness of sight. That takes time to get to. I'm just breaking down the parameters of what we're looking to investigate when we go into these tools, right? So with the mind, with thoughts, and I always say the first addiction that we have, the first most widely socially accepted narcotic in the world is thinking. Right? Thinking ends up turning into the physical addictions, the drug abuse, substance abuse, sex, overindulgence, food, all these different things. And actually, there's something in yoga we talk about, the 4 primitive urges. These are the channels where most of your thought traffic is funneling to. First of which is food. Right now, you're probably hungry, thinking about a burger, some chicken, whatever it is. The second one is sleep. Throughout the course of our day, we are fantasizing what we're going to eat for dinner, and being able to just lay up and do nothing and eventually fall asleep, right? When people go into meditation, these are 2 of the main obstacles. They get hungry, they get sleepy. The third primitive urge, sex, but I also couple that with entertainment, right? So anything from calling somebody through because you feel lonely or binge watching a show for 8 hours, we're filling the void of our attention with something, with information. The fourth primitive urge is just basic self-preservation. Making sure you keep yourself safe and protected, whatever that may look like. Crossing the street when it may be late at night and you are a woman by yourself, and there may not be anything wrong with that dude that's walking in front of you about to cross paths with you, but that inclination for self-preservation tells you, here, cross the street right here, just in case. These are where our thoughts are funneling to, right? So when you realize this, and the more you scale your attention back, you give it distance and space from being able to watch the mechanics of how the mind works. I've kind of come up with a system for how to actually approach presence. Everybody in the spiritual community, all the gurus, shout out to Eckhart Tolle. If you haven't read Power of Now, extremely powerful book. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about being present. I haven't heard too many people talk about the fundamentals of how to actually do that. So when you notice people are strung out on a narcotic of thinking, and again, thought is different from thinking. Thinking is the engaging, the picking up of the thought, taking it off the conveyor belt of your mind and developing it into a story. Thought can come without us having to think about it, right? This is a revolutionary concept when you first hear it, but you actually have the power of choice and autonomy over which thoughts you are going to engage and actually think about. Case in point, if we were in meditation and the thought of hunger were to arise, the thought is fine. The thinking is hunger arises, all right, what we gonna eat? That first transition from the initial seed thought to what are we gonna do about it is where thinking is actually happening. We don't have to do that about any thought, right? So this is what happens when you start to create distance from this automatic knee-jerk response that nobody has told us we can do anything about, and what ultimately turns into the stress, the chaos that's going on in your mind all the time, causing you to overthink and worry about everything, okay? So the first step to this process is a lot like the vision aspect of it that we just did the experiment with. To pick up a thought, a few different things happen. And if you see me looking down, I'm cheating. I'm looking at my notes. I ain't want to have to try to remember this, right? But the first stage is what I call the blur. You really notice when somebody is strung out on a thought or thinking, because what do? Right? You see them just, or you yourself, you just kind of drift off mentally into space. And whatever's in front of you, whatever the moment you're supposed to be engaging, you have left that moment. And it may seem like I'm looking at this wall over here, but I'm not. The wall doesn't even exist to me there. It's there physically, right? Just like my fingertip was there when I focused on the door. When we are strung out on thought, whatever the object that we're giving our focus to visually is no longer there. We have gone beyond it to the thinking, right? So we do this all the time. We see each other get strung out on thinking all the time, and it's so normal. Nobody ever says, hey, where are you at right now? This is something I do with my clients and just people I love in general. When I see them glazed out, and that's the next part, the glaze, I kind of just say, where are you? And it kind of brings them back from drifting off into worlds that don't even exist right now. So the first thing to catch yourself picking up a thought and turning it into thinking is the blur, right? Your eyes will literally blur, and then it will turn into the gaze/the glaze, which is when you are just gone and just drifting off into space. The third aspect is tension. Once the blur has occurred, the glaze comes, and you're kind of leaving right now. Usually when we leave right now, that's where anxiety will rise up, fear of the future, worry, regret, or resentment of the past. When you leave the present moment, all these different fields of information erect that cause you to have reasons to be scared, to be pissed off, to be angry. When we are in these low frequency negative emotions, how does the body respond? It constricts, it braces itself, it gets tight to almost try to keep you safe, self-preservation, and to protect you. So a lot of times when we go into yoga and meditation classes, as we prepare the body, we guide people through the system to allow their body parts to start to detensify, to relax, because that tension is an indication you ain't here right now. So you got the blur, you got the glaze, you got tension, and by that point, mind you, this usually happens in fractions of a second. It's very hard to notice when you first start without what I'm giving you. I'm making it easy for you. These are the cliff notes of consciousness, right? But by that fourth part, departure, you have left the building. You are no longer here. Your body is in front of that person. Your body is at the dinner table with your mate, right, having a meal. But you are not there consciously, mentally. Your attention is in a whole nother world. 10 years ago, maybe 5 years down the line, but you have departed, you have left the building. So let's just take a moment, maybe 30 seconds to just watch this process happen. Let's just practice real quick. I want you to keep your eyes open. I want you to choose a bindu somewhere in your environment, whatever it is for you. And once you choose your bindu, we're going to take 30 seconds and we're going to watch, we're going to investigate if what I just said is actually valid. We're going to look for the blur. We're going to look for that glaze that turns into the gaze. We're going to sense if our body tightens or tenses in any areas. And we're going to notice when our attention has departed to something that is not that bindu that you just chose. In 3, choose your bindu. And in 3, 2, I got mine, 1. Now just focus on your bindu. For some of you, this whole process may have already happened. If it's happened, don't feel guilty. Don't beat yourself up. Just continue to keep not just your sight on the bindu, but your attention. And when you notice the blurring of the eyes happening, when you notice yourself no longer really fixed on the object, you just kind of glazed out on it. There is no clarity or keenness in your observation of your bindu. Notice when the jaw gets tight, when the eyes start to squeeze or squinch. Notice when the shoulders start to rise up, any tension in the body. And then notice all these other thoughts that present themselves to you and that you end up picking up and thinking about at the end of this process and that departure. I'll give you another 15 seconds of me being quiet, you just watching. And notice the thoughts that invite you, that you do pick up. Notice what you're thinking about. I'm going to give you an additional 20 seconds to not just watch the process, but notice the other thoughts that get your attention to spill away with them. Whether it's about food or sleep or sex, entertainment, or self-preservation. Self-preservation may be the bills you're thinking about while you watch this bindu that has taken you away from the object you chose. You may be thinking about money, your job, cooking today. All these things are coming up. Just notice the thoughts that your attention did latch onto. Last 10 seconds. Maybe some of the information coming in through your senses is triggering new thoughts that you may drift away with. Just noticing. No judgment. All right, break focus. The act of actually noticing, again, is like turning on the lights and the cockroaches run away. The cockroach of your untrained attention gets scared when you watch it. It gets scared when you create space and distance because the egoic mind is so hardened based on the fact you don't have awareness of this process. This is what enlightenment, consciousness, all these esoteric terms we use for it is really just about noticing everything about yourself, and we often don't pay attention to the kosher, the plane of existence that is the mind, right? So just the noticing is what can give you the ability to send your attention in a different direction, to send your attention more consistently towards dropping thoughts as opposed to picking all of them up. So we saw the outline of what happens when we pick up a thought. When we drop a thought, right? As soon as that thought is dropped, whatever it was about, there is a very small fraction of a second, half a second, quarter of a second, whatever you want to call it, right? There's this very small interval, a window, where there is no thought. Everybody thinks they got to be a yogi in a Himalayan cave to be able to tap into thoughtlessness. You naturally do it all the time anyway. At the end of a thought crashing back into not existing, there's an interval before the next thought arises, right? So as soon as you drop a thought, and we're going to practice that next, there's a gap in thought. After that gap, you'll realize that emptiness, void, what we call shunya or sunya in yoga, which means the void. Even in the Bible, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And this very next scripture, I believe, is the earth was null and void, and blackness came over the deep, or emptiness came over the deep. This is God's space and thought. All of existence is the thought of the one mind of God, and we are all different thoughts in that mind, right? So when you drop the thought, there's that gap, and there's this spaciousness. There's this very innately peaceful void. And think about when you don't have to think, how much energy you have to give to thinking throughout the course of every single day. Think about what it's like to take a vacation from that, right? That's peace that you don't have to fight for, you don't have to program or purchase or buy. It's just already there in the emptiness, right? So there's the gap in thought, there's shunya or the void. There's a sense of relaxation that happens when you aren't thinking, because again, thinking is taking you to the worry, to the stress, the fear, the anger, the memory, the future projections. When that's not there, there's no effort required. The body recognizes that signal and says, oh, we safe, we can relax. And then the jaw loosens up, the eyes loosen up, the whole body goes into a state of relaxation. Again, it's very quick, Before you know it, another thought comes back and you go back into the tightness. But within that gap, there is an innate natural relaxation, right? There's also a clarity. There's a sharpness of your attention, because now attention has dropped what it had, that thought it ran away with and was thinking about and into, that's gone. The attention has to go somewhere. So there's a certain clarity where it snaps back. There's an elasticity of your attention that snaps back to whatever is in the present moment. And now it's investigating, okay, what do we pay attention to now? And before you know it, after this gap has elapsed, attention figures out what it can pay attention to in the present moment, then it chooses another thought. And all of this starts over again and again and again. So throughout the course of just 1 minute, this happens hundreds, sometimes for some people, thousands of times. Just to be able to notice this will create the foundation for you to not be so quick to pick up a thought, to turn a singular 2 to 3 second thought into a 5-10 minute thinking session about something that does not even exist. So second part of this process, we're going to pick another bindu. We're going to watch the process, and anytime you actually found your attention having engaged one of those thoughts, drop it and investigate if this layout is also accurate. If you can notice that tiny gap where you don't think at all. If you can notice the wave of relaxation, that emptiness, that void, the clarity that comes, and then ultimately going back to picking up another thought. So once again, if you want to pick the same bindu or a different bindu, let's do so. I'm going to pick a different bindu for myself. And in 3, 2, 1. Start your process. Just notice. Doing your best to keep your vision focused on your bindu as well as your attention. Noticing when that blur happens. Noticing the glaze out. The gazing past the bindu when it happens. Noticing when the tension arises. Noticing when you depart from that bindu mentally. And when you notice you have departed at certain junctures of this practice, noticing what that thought is that you just departed to. And when you are able to notice what the thought is, just simply drop the thought. Disengage from it, dismount like a gymnast would. Dismount from the thought and see if you can notice there's a tiny gap where there is no thought before that next one shows up. See if you can notice at the end of dropping a thought, that emptiness, that relaxation, that that your mind kind of takes, your attention kind of takes, realizing at least for half a second I don't have to do anything. Still fixed on your bindu. And for this last 30 seconds, every single thought that you notice yourself pick up, just drop, disengage over and over. And notice the quality of what's available to you in between the dropping of a thought and the picking up of the next thought. Start to direct your attention towards the gaps between thought. And now I want you to close your eyes. You can center your face, center your head while your eyes are closed. And now that we have an idea that there are gaps, natural gaps between thoughts, now give your attention to just the process of thought without any visual information. Thought rises, choose not to engage. Thought fades. Gap. Void. Emptiness. Relaxation. Clarity. And then noticing attention looking for the next thought, choosing one. Attention chooses the thoughts by itself, but it does not mean you have to engage. And for this last few seconds, give more of your attention to the emptiness between the thoughts. which is normally in the background of your consciousness, allow these spaces between thought to kind of protrude towards the front ground of your attention. Let the thoughts themselves become the background and allow your attention to start to lay down into these gaps. If you notice any tension rise into the eyes, the jaw, the mouth, the face, this is an indication you've departed. Drop the tension, relax, stay in the gaps. Your attention is always filtering out unnecessary information. Allow thought itself for these last few seconds to be that unnecessary data. Only curious about, only investigative of the emptiness between thought selection. Thoughts like, am I doing this well? Or I can't do this. These are also just thoughts. Don't let them trick you. Thoughts of limitation come as if the mind is so big and bad, and it's really not. I'm hungry. I want to hurry up to the next thing. All these are just blips of mental activity that rise and fade. Stay in the space between the fading and the next rising of a new thought. You aren't creating these spaces, they naturally exist. You're just paying attention to them. And you're not doing this for any particular reason. You're not requesting anything from these spaces. You're just observing for observation's sake. That's it. Allowing your attention to lay down, relax into, and retire away from thinking. Just let go. And we'll give ourselves an additional last 30 seconds. So we don't often get the opportunity to take vacations from this process. So enjoy it. Don't rush past it. Thinking, thought itself is none of your business right now. Take the approach that all that exists, all that is real, is the space between the thoughts. And when I count us down from 3, we're going to take a deep, smooth, slow breath in. We'll give our attention to the natural process of our breath. Lungs, chest expanding and collapsing as we breathe in and out. And we're going to manipulate that breath. When I count us down from 3, we're going to breathe that breath from the feet through the body to the top of the head. In 3, 2, smooth, slow, full. Don't cheat it. Feel that breath travel through the body to the top of the head. When it gets there, hold it. And as you're holding this breath, there's also a gap, a void between even breath that's participating with your attention, laying down in the spaces, the gaps, the emptiness between thought, doubling down on that emptiness with this held breath. And in 3, 2, Whisper that breath out through the center of your lips slowly. Make sure to get it all the oxygen out of the lungs, collapse the lungs completely. And once you've done so, slowly open the eyes. Notice the quality of your frequency right now. Very simple technique. We didn't go into a deep traditional meditation, but just notice how you feel as opposed to before we started. Just a few minutes of this noticing, this consciousness of yourself, this self-inquiry is what we call it. Notice how it has an effect on your physical body, your ability to stay in peace. I want you to start to practice this throughout the course of your day. Set your alarm on your phone, on your watch. Create mental signposts for yourself to remember to engage this practice, to notice first just how much you depart from your life. I always say we go our whole lives missing our whole lives, right? When you are constantly departing, even when you acquire some of the beautiful things in life, it don't feel as good as you dreamt about it feeling, because once you are in it and you're accepting an award, you're getting a raise, you're getting married, your mind not even there. Your attention is not even there. So just start to practice this open eye meditation and start to go through this process as much as you can. You'll find that you'll naturally start to retract into more of a peaceful meditative state even while you are in activity. Once again, I thank you guys for being here. Please like, subscribe, comment, suggest, and share this platform. Shout out to my brother Black Man Meditate. If you want to hit him up, I will have his link in the description for these t-shirts. But yeah, I just appreciate y'all time, presence, and of course, attention. I bow to the divinity in all my reflections. Thank y'all.